Notre Dame is on the cusp of a recruiting hot streak. A 4-star edge rusher just committed. A 5-star defensive end could be next. And the Irish are making serious moves on both sides of the ball. We're breaking it all down with recruiting insider Brian Smith on today's Locked On Irish.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, and welcome into another edition of Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer at Fox Sports, and I am thrilled to have you here with me on Tuesday, April 8th. And thanks for making this your first listen of the day. Quick reminder to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Even though it's early April, there is a lot to discuss about Notre Dame football. Over the weekend, the Irish had a scrimmage that was open to the media, and I'll be breaking that down tomorrow with an insider who is actually there to get all the details. But today, we're going to focus on recruiting. We're breaking down the commitment of a 4-star edge rusher, what Notre Dame could be getting in 5-star defensive end Rodney Dunham, who's set to commit later on this week, and why Al Washington's recruiting efforts might be turning a corner. We'll also talk about Ja'Juan Seider's early impact on the trail, the wide receiver board, and some big picture trends fueling Notre Dame's recruiting momentum. And joining me to unpack it all is Locked On's recruiting insider, Brian Smith. Here he is. All right, I'm joined once again by Brian Smith. Let's start with Notre Dame's latest commitment, 4-star edge rusher Ebenezer Ewetade out of North Carolina. What stands out to you about his game, and how does he project in Al Washington's system?
He's a weak side edge all day long. He's very long at the hip, a guy that puts one foot in the ground and changes direction. Despite being a edge rusher, usually that's reserved for corners and running backs, those kind of guys. His film is really impressive athletically. Now, he needs to put on weight, and I know he's on the verge of a 5-star on a couple of services or whatever. I don't think he's quite as high because I don't think he'll be an impact guy necessarily. But after 1 year, the jump that he will make through strength gains, I mean, he's in Garner, North Carolina. It's not like they got like elite programs, strength programs and stuff there, but his upside is through the roof. He reminds me physically of a lot of the guys from the 90s, even Justin Tuck, early 2000s, like how he was built. Peter Boulware, Justin Tuck, 210 to 220 range. He's going to gain 30 pounds within the first year or so he's on campus, and he will be a totally different guy. He's kind of like Boubacar, to a little bit of a comparison, like the way he's built. So pure weak side end. And I think he's a guy that will dip and bend and just be a nuisance, especially in passing situations. Not very many guys are built like him.
Yeah, so he's listed at 6'4", 220 pounds in the recruiting sites. The 6'4" part seems legitimate. The 220 pounds part, I don't know about that. It's probably closer to 210 based on just how he looks on film and in pictures. But Notre Dame won this battle over Alabama, Georgia, like some big-time programs who were going after Ebenezer. Now, Notre Dame was able to get in on him early, which I think certainly helped. But ultimately, what do you think were the key factors that led Ewetade to commit to Notre Dame?
I was just told it was relationships, which is usually the end-all, be-all. Freeman being involved, Coach Ash being involved. I think that Al Washington's done a better job this cycle. Obviously, he's been somebody that's been a whipping boy for some fans, bitching about who they aren't getting on the D-line. Well, that's changed a lot this year, obviously, as we're going to talk about today. And it was the relationships. They made an effort to go after him before he had all the offers, and then Bama offered, and then other schools offered. It's usually the other way around. Notre Dame's been much more active instead of reactive with their D-line recruiting in this cycle. And it's made a huge difference. Kids remember who offered and when. Believe me, that's a conversation that happens a lot off the record. And it can tick some people. It can tick mom off, etc. Notre Dame was one of the first to the party, and that was a big deal.
Yeah, this felt like the opposite of the Derek Meadows recruitment last year, where Notre Dame was in on Meadows real early before everyone else. And then as he sort of like blew up, then all the SEC schools came after him. Then he ended up committing to LSU before ultimately flipping to Alabama. At least Notre Dame was able to get this one over the line. But Ewetade brings a lot of raw athleticism. He's going to develop over his last year in high school. But do you think he's someone who can contribute early, like a Bryce Young, or do you think he's more of a long-term upside play for Notre Dame?
I think he's more second year. Bryce was so long that they could do some things with him, and he was the ultimate late bloomer. Like he was 6'4", like 195 or something going into the beginning of his summer before his junior year, and then he just blossomed. Like his body just changed. I think this kid's more consistent with what you normally see, but he'll still need some strength. Now, could he be a designated pass rusher as a freshman? Oh, yeah. You can't teach his ability to bend and get off the edge. I'll take that all day. But Notre Dame's not in a position finally for them that they have to have a freshman in the two deep as your edge guy. So they should be okay. I just think that they can bring him along. Normally he'll play some as a sophomore, maybe start, but his junior year, you should expect him to compete for a starting role. And they don't have to. So that'll be good for him as well.
So he would fit the Boubacar Traore timeline, who sat out his entire freshman season, although he had that one sack against USC, which is where you actually got to see, oh, wow, like the potential for this guy is through the roof. And unfortunately, Traore's last season was cut short by injury, but he projects to have a huge season coming up here. But Notre Dame is also projected to land 5-star defensive end Rodney Dunham later this week, assuming the Irish are able to land him. How big of a recruiting win is he for Marcus Freeman and Al Washington?
Massive. This is an impact player. I know that, again, his recruitment, depending on what ranking you go with, it's wildly different. Somebody, I can't remember if it's on 3 or somebody has him top 10 nationally, but his length is there. He's very similar in his build to Ewetade, but he's also much stronger. He's at Myers Park, just outside of Charlotte. That's a much more established program. And more importantly, he's just physically so much stronger. He can run through guys. Ewetade is not going to do that right now very much. So he can play strong side end long term. They might be your 1-2. You might put him to the field and play the power spot, although Notre Dame's probably not going to use that quite as much with Chris Ash there. But he's a stronger guy. I think he can be a first-year impact guy. There aren't many D linemen that can do that at Ohio State and Notre Dame and Texas. He's one of those rare guys. He can run through you. He can run around you. He can use a two-hand swipe. He's got a few moves, but ultimately, it's still the same thing. It's length, the ability to bend, dip around the corner, and to speed rush. He has all that package, and he's also a guy that just really plays hard. I think that attracted all the schools to him. So, like, they beat Georgia out for him, among others. That kind of tells you what kind of recruit he is.
How would you compare him to some of the other elite defensive line recruits that have come through Notre Dame? Maybe not so much recently because they haven't landed a lot of those guys, but he looks very physically put together already at this stage in his high school career.
Notre Dame never gets this kid. I mean, I followed Notre Dame recruiting since 1990. They don't get this kid this developed. They always get the kid with the upside, the more the Boubacar Traore type. You could argue in the last 30-plus years that if they get him and they sign him, that he's the most developed, ready to go, pure edge pass rusher that still has some power that they have signed in 30-plus years. Notre Dame DN recruiting is not the end all be all. They struggle with that spot, and they usually have for years. But it's ironic because they're both from North Carolina and they're both committing within the same week. Notre Dame might end that in double fashion, but whatever the case may be, this, in my opinion, would be the most gifted guy physically that they've signed in a long time, because it's always been an outside linebacker that's transitioning or a kid that needs to add a lot of weight or whatever. This kid, Dunham, can absolutely play right away, and that would be at Alabama or Texas or anywhere. Very rare player.
What do you make of Notre Dame's recent success recruiting in North Carolina? Because they have Ewetade, Dunham is also from North Carolina, as you mentioned, Bryce Young last year. Like, that's not necessarily a high school recruiting hotbed, typically. Micah Gilbert as well. But lately, it seems like it's been a place for Notre Dame where they have had a ton of success.
I think it's the 5th best state in the country now for high school football recruiting because of all the people moving down. Charlotte in particular last year draft, just Charlotte had 6 kids drafted. It's changed, and they put a whole bunch of them. I talked to somebody that works in media there last weekend. They put a lot more money into facilities and coaching, and it's a massive state. So more schools, Georgia hits it hard, Tennessee hits it hard, Florida State, now Notre Dame, Ohio State gets kids out of there. This is the new state. I don't think it's quite Georgia level, but I mean, they had 10 guys drafted last year. So that's a good sign. Now, as far as the D-line thing, that's kind of weird. Like, this is just a great year for D-linemen. I don't know what's going on there. You got me. But Notre Dame's not complaining. I can assure you of that. The academics there are a little better. It probably fits Notre Dame culturally a little bit better. Some of the suburban schools, whether in the Raleigh area or like Myers Park or Rodney Dunham, there's a better fit there for a lot of those kids. So you might see Notre Dame hit North Carolina a little bit more than what they have in the past. So it's a really up and coming state, and good for Notre Dame for taking advantage.
Brian is going to be right back here with me in a second to break down what's been clicking for Notre Dame defensive line coach Al Washington and what has led to this wave of momentum for him at his position and whether or not other positions on Notre Dame could experience some of that success. But first, a message from Game Time. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Game Time. Game Time makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer, and with their all-in pricing, you see the total cost up front, no surprises at checkout. You can save up to 60% off by buying last-minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. And with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you could book with total confidence. Their lowest price guarantee means I never worry about overpaying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This felt like a make-or-break cycle for Al Washington, and he seems to be responding in a big way on the recruiting trail. What's changed for him this cycle, and how has he been able to close on guys like Ewetade and potentially Dunham and then put himself in good position to land a player like Elijah Golden?
I think it's pretty much just getting in on kids early, like we were talking about Ewetade. You've got to do it. He's been more involved with it. Marcus is involved. Chris Ash is involved. Before he left, Chad Bowden and all those guys set up the board. They're getting kids on campus when they're freshmen and sophomores. The relationships are built. It makes it easier when you get to this point. I mean, I know it's Bryant Young's kid, but they had Bryce Young on campus early. It still matters. Those are the keys to it, and they're reaping the benefits now. The only other thing that I will say, this was definitely a Brian Kelly fault, not near as much under Freeman. They're casting a wider net early with offers and staying in contact, not just one text a week to a kid to kind of keep him on the mix, but actually let's go out and recruit this kid. So you may not get your number one everywhere, but you don't have any holes. They're going to sign 4 or 5 really good D linemen. I think they'll get Tiki Hola, the kid out of Texas, and several other players are still in the mix. They could get a couple other guys. They're in a good spot. So hats off to them for being a well-rounded unit, and Al's part of it. He's done it much better.
This also feels like a make or break cycle for wide receiver coach Mike Brown. It appears that they have some momentum right now with Caden Finley, who's been at the top of their board for a while, as well as Braden Robinson, and somewhat under the radar prospect in 3-star Bubba Frazier out of Georgia. You and I talked about this before we started recording, and we both are kind of the mindset like, I'll believe it when I see it, when these guys actually commit and then potentially sign later on down the road. But how much confidence do you have that Brown and the rest of the offensive staff are going to be able to close on their top wide receiver targets?
I'm not sure how much I have in the summer. I think I will have more in the fall. Like if they lost Braden Robinson to Ohio State or Miami, would it surprise me? Absolutely not. Those schools throw the ball more. They want to throw the ball more. I can tell you flat out that I know everybody wants to hear their own thing about, if you're a Notre Dame fan, especially if you're a grad, receivers aren't picking Notre Dame because of the degree. I mean, that's just not how receivers work. It's the prima donna position in the sport. It's going to be harder for Notre Dame to recruit, and they are a run-first offense. Those are not good combinations. So they need to see it. Well, you can't see it before the season starts, and that's when all the official visits are. So are they really going to get Braden Robinson? I know some people are predicting it. I need to see it. He's going to take an Ohio State visit, and he just unofficially visited Miami. He does have Notre Dame coming up for an unofficial visit too. Caden Finley, I think they got a better shot there. Sounds like he just loves Notre Dame. Like the visit he's taken, I like their chances there, but do they get anybody else? Do they settle for 2 if they miss on everybody? Do they go into the fall and flip somebody? In my opinion, they got to get 3 top receivers in this group, but at the same time, I don't know if they will. I got to see it, man.
I'm with you. Like, it's great that they have this momentum now, but we are still so far away from the early signing period. These guys actually have to commit and then stay true to that. But Finley is an interesting prospect for me because he's from Texas. I think there's a lot of similarities between him and Jane Greathouse, just given their background, their size, their frame, all of that stuff. But it seems like he has been Notre Dame's top wide receiver target for a long time now. And his recruiting ranking is solid. He's a 4-star, just outside the top 100. But what is it about his game that you think Notre Dame is so enamored with?
He's very similar to Greathouse in his frame and being an advanced player in terms of his physical stature. He'll be ready to play as a freshman physically compared to most kids. And he's a pretty darn good route runner. He's a guy that plays in the Dallas area. He's used to competition. In my opinion, Atlanta, Miami, and Dallas overall just balance are the best three cities. You can throw LA in there too, but he's used to going against top competition all the time. And finally, he's a kid that's very competitive at the catch point. He's physical. Notre Dame predicates their recruiting success a lot on taking kids that are physical first, maybe not quite as fast as somebody else, but they win battles. I think Greathouse fits that to a T. He's not going to go to the combine and run 4.33. You know what I mean? He's fast, but he's not that fast. They'd rather have the guy that's going to be competitive, run good routes, block, do everything, and be a complete player. And I think they're going to sell him on, hey, you're the next Greathouse. Be a part of this. You'll have more guys around you that'll help. Bazon in his class, etc. Notre Dame's a good fit for him, to be honest.
New running backs coach Ja'Juan Siders quickly made his presence felt on the recruiting trail. You and I have already talked about this a lot, and it just continues to make waves, especially with 4-star Javion Osborne and Brian Bonner, two prospects who Notre Dame might not have been in the running for before he joined the staff, and now it looks like he has a potential to land both. What are you hearing about Notre Dame's chances with the two?
Well, I mean, it kind of depends on the timing. Everybody you talk to, it's like, could Notre Dame get away with signing this one running back this class? And they're shooting for the stars, the elite players. And the answer is yes. They've done so well at running back. But at the same time, like Bonner, I love. I think he's the closest thing. I'm not saying he's Jeremiah Love, but in this class, he's the player nationally that most resembles Jeremiah. I got to see him play live in high school. Believe me, he was fast as all get out then too. This kid shot out of a cannon. Washington, to me, is the most likely destination. They've got a very early visit. He's most comfortable with them. They're the school that he has the OB and nobody else, unless he just set one up today before we recorded. Notre Dame and Michigan are really after him. UCLA wants him. It's all over the place. But I need to see him come back and set that visit before I feel comfortable picking Notre Dame. I think they're going to get Javion Osborne. I was messaging with him a couple of days ago. He's probably going to decide in early May from what he told me. He's not sure yet, but that's probably the case. I think Notre Dame's trending there. I also still think that there's a chance that they end up with one of the other running backs too. I mean, they're in on so many good ones. I'm not going to really complain too much if I'm a Notre Dame fan. The running back room is going to be gross under Sider because he's such a good recruiter and they run the ball. So I'm not that worried about it. I mean, maybe it's Walker, the kid out of Missouri. Maybe it's one of the other guys. I think that'll take care of itself. Jonas Walton, the kid out of Carrollton, Georgia Central High School, they'll be fine at running back no matter what.
Yeah, they've got a lot of options there, but it does seem like Osborne and Bonner are the two guys at the top of their list. And I think it's an interesting coincidence that Osborne is down to Michigan and Notre Dame, which involves two running back coaches, Tony Alford and Ja'Juan Sider, who apparently were the top two candidates to become Notre Dame's running back coach after Deal McCullough left. So it's interesting how things play out there. But let's say, Notre Dame is able to hit the jackpot here. They get Osborne, they get Bonner as well. How would those two stack up together going up against some of the other running back classes that Notre Dame has had in the past? Because, just a few years ago, they had Keidron Young and Aeneas Williams. And even though they're still very young, like when they got those two guys, I thought they absolutely hit a home run in this class. But if they got Osborne or Bonner, I think it would be better.
You could argue it. The thing with Bonner that makes me so high on him, I think he's a national top 5 running back, and I think Osborne is too. But if one had the higher ceiling, I would say Bonner, because I think he could flat out play wide receiver. Like Jeremiah, he is shot out of a cannon. So you would have two guys that have home run speed who also have good vision for like just basic outside zone. If you miss a run gap fit to either one of those guys, it's touchdown. You can run the most generic offense in the world. I'm not saying you should do that, but you can run for 180 yards a game with just outside zone, a few toss sweeps, student body right, with these kind of athletes, not even being creative. That's when you know you have talent. So Notre Dame used to recruit like this under Holtz, but to do it in the modern day era where guys really try to avoid competition is hard. Even Georgia struggles to get two running backs like this as much as they run the ball. So yes, it would be absolutely a home run if they did that.
I think they're seeing it right now because you look at the running back depth chart with Love and Price and Williams. Like
It's
Keydron Young is fourth string. That's going to be tough to keep him around
oh,
because
I
he
think
could
that's a
go other
problem.
places and play.
Yeah, it'll be tough to keep Kedron after this spring. I don't know if they'll be able to do that. It's just numbers. So yeah, that's part of it. But at least if you have numbers, that means you're going to be better off in the fall because guys get banged up. Look at Notre Dame's running back room last year. It went through a lot of attrition, especially at the end of the year because it's such a long season. You got to have 4 or 5 running backs that can play. If you don't, it'll probably bite you at some point during a football season.
So the first couple times that you and I talked this offseason, there really wasn't a ton to talk about, at least positively, as it relates to Notre Dame recruiting because like Chad Bowden left and Notre Dame got a late start really to recruiting because they had such a long season. And lately we've seen a ton of momentum for Notre Dame across the board, specifically on the defensive line, but it seems like in a lot of other positions as well. What do you think is the driving factor in all of this? Is it just a timing thing or do you think something happened that really led to the spark?
I think it's a couple of things. Number one, NIL has increased for high school kids, from what I've been told. And two, I think they've just, because of what I said earlier, all these kids they've put time in over a few years. Now they're juniors and seniors. Like you're seeing that even with the 27 class, Notre Dame's off to a pretty good start there too. It's just time. And if you add a little extra NIL, that doesn't hurt. So I'm sure that getting Chris Ash on campus, he's a guy that can recruit, doesn't hurt either. But Notre Dame knows they have to take that next step at the D line. They saw the Ohio State game. So in particular, I think D line is on another level and the focus is there. There's again, wider net. They're going to spend more money on it and they're going to make that a primary focus. And by the way, USC just got their 7th D line commitment for the class of 26. So there's some battling going on there as well. That I'm sure the Chad Bowden thing has something to do with it too. But Notre Dame knows what they have to do to get that final step to truly be on par with Georgia, Ohio State, and some of these other schools in the trenches. And it's just focus, a little bit of NIL money.
How have you seen Marcus Freeman evolve as a recruiter over the years as a head coach? Because when he first got hired, he was very upfront and said he was going to be the lead recruiter on every prospect. And I think over time he realized that's literally not possible to do as the head coach at Notre Dame when you have all kinds of other obligations. But he's still obviously very involved in everything that goes on with Notre Dame recruiting. But it does seem like it's changed over time. So what are some of the biggest changes that you've noticed with his approach to recruiting?
Every CEO has to find a way to delegate, even if they hate it. Bo Schembechler, Lou Holtz, for example, those two guys hated delegating. They wanted to be involved in everything. Well, you can't be in every huddle during every practice. They got O lines over here, D lines over here. You have to help your guys recruit, but you have to learn their personalities and adjust. He's obviously helped Al Washington get better, and they focus more on the D line. Maybe he's putting more of his effort into that to help out. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's working. He's adjusted the personnel around him. And he's probably adjusted to Notre Dame a little bit, just being around the school for longer. And then finally, I think it's just the staff. They've got enough guys with experience, especially with Denbrock. This is his third tour duty at Notre Dame. They have people that can sell Notre Dame as a staff. It shouldn't be that hard anyway, but it's so competitive, especially with NIL. I think overall, the operation's just smoother. Your point, by the way, was dead on. You cannot be the lead recruiter for everybody. That's utterly ridiculous. There's no way. So got to know when to let off the gas. So he's done that and the staff has done better. And they're holistically as an operation, one of the best in the country now. They're very, very consistent.
Part of that delegation involves the new general manager, Mike Martin. I think that was also part of the reason why Notre Dame had that dormant period at the beginning of the offseason because they had to basically retool their recruiting department. I mean, once Chad left, he also brought a couple other people with him that were very important to that operation. But now with Mike Martin a little bit more settled in, it seems like they've rounded out that staff. Have you heard of anything different? Is there a new approach for them? Maybe not super prevalent to this class because they've already, like you said, they've been talking to these guys for a long time. But have you noticed or heard anything significant about how Notre Dame is changing their approach to high school recruiting going forward?
Just broader. They're offering more kids early. Like you and I talked about when they did the pot of gold, that was really a lot of players. What was it? Like 100 kids, something? I forget what it was. That's more than they normally offer. So that means the back office staff, they've got more people they trust and probably just more overall numbers. to help break down film, make sure the kids are fit. Obviously, Notre Dame's a unique institution. And finally, they're putting in the effort because these kids are also already coming. Like some of the 27 kids are already on campus that are elite. So that's a really good sign. I think those are the things that matter the most. They really prioritize getting out on kids early. And again, D-line, like, what was it? They offered like 25, 28 D linemen off the bat. Like, it was insane. So I think they're changing a little bit and they're adapting. So speed over size and just good athletes, but versatility up front has been a major factor.
All right, last question I have for you. Which targets are you keeping an eye on as Notre Dame continues to round out the class of 2026 who could be on commit watch here soon?
Commit watch with the timing with this is always hard, but one of the kids that I think that Notre Dame's kind of moving up is Ian Premier, the tight end out of Kansas. Really good player. You could argue is the best tight end in the country. Flex kid, plays at Great Bend, Kansas. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Bonner. He's the big question mark, but he's a kid obviously Notre Dame wants. He visited Michigan, then Notre Dame here recently. Obviously, Dunham's getting ready to come up. Everybody thinks he's going to Notre Dame. As far as like a surprise or any kid, I don't know if there's anything incredibly big on it, but the kid that I'm most curious about is Drake Quinn at a Greater Atlanta Christian, another defensive lineman. They would like to add him. I don't know what spot he'll play long-term, but he's another kid that's long and lean. He's 225, 230, and he plays at a really good high school in terms of academics and football. Those are some of them. And also I'm curious about Joey O'Brien, if he's going to end it before he's all his OVs. Let's see if he does, because it sounds like Notre Dame's the team, but eventually you got to wonder if he's going to commit or not. That's kind of my question, because Notre Dame's been after him forever, and Penn State's not going to give up either. So we'll see.
For more, you can listen to Brian every weekday on his podcast, The Portal, that he does here for us at the Locked On Podcast Network. Brian, thanks so much for taking the time. As always, if things go according to plan, Notre Dame could have a lot more good news in the very near future. So I'm sure we'll be in touch again soon. Thanks again, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. Remember to tune in tomorrow for a full reaction to Notre Dame's scrimmage on Saturday with the Notre Dame Insider. We're going to discuss where things stand for the Irish at this point in spring practice. Also, remember to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to the podcast. And if you enjoyed the show today, remember, give this video a like if you're watching along on YouTube, or rate the podcast 5 stars and leave a review. Have a great day, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.